Welcome back to another episode of Being Intentional. This is your host, LaFrederick Burns, and this is actually going to be episode 3 of my podcast, but this is part 2 of the series of me sharing my experience with suicide prevention. As I discussed in the last episode, September is recognized as National Suicide Prevention Month, and I'm sharing my experience with suicide and how I attempted to take my life on April 17th, 2007. So as I stated in the last episode, at the time I was married to a woman that we were having a lot of issues, and we actually, truth be told, we actually saw the end of our marriage coming around this time, probably before that. But this was pretty much the beginning of the end. So again, the date was April 17th, 2007. My wife, I received a phone call that was pretty much bashing me. I can hear a lot of what was being said on the other end, and it just made me feel completely terrible. And when she took the conversation in another room, I could still hear it's going on, and I didn't like what I was hearing from her side of the conversation. So I slammed the bottle of Excedrin. And and I believe when I slammed the bottle of Excedrin on the counter, it was meant to make her mad, not to let her know. Not so much to cry out for help, but to make her mad. And I didn't get the reaction that I wanted out of her. But, hindsight being 2020, I do appreciate the reaction that I did get out of her. Because when I slammed the bottle on the counter, she came out, she ended the conversation. And when she realized what I did, she said, okay, you got 2 options. Either I can make a public scene and have the police and the medical help out here to the house, or you can get your butt in the car and I can take you to the hospital. So reluctantly, and being a private person, I went ahead and got in the car. She took me to the local ER, and they treat you like you just tried to kill somebody, really. And yes, you did try to just kill yourself, but you're trying to harm yourself, but they treat you like you're a major threat to everyone else. So if you've never experienced a suicide attempt, my experience was this. So she drove me to the hospital. They get you checked in, and when you tell them that it's a suicide attempt, you almost get rushed to the back right away, and you get put in a room, and they call a security guard to your room immediately to stand guard outside of your room. So the security guard is outside the room. She's in and out. She got my wallet. She's calling, helping them register me, and giving them the insurance information so they can get a ambulance transport from the local ER over to the mental health ward. And yeah, it's just this whole fiasco that's going on around you. Even though you tell them what you took and they know how dangerous it is or isn't, they are still rushing to do everything to try to save your life. So they right away mix up this concoction. So they take these 2 tubes, mix up this concoction into a cup, and they make you drink it. They call it charcoal, and what it's meant to do is make you expel or vomit anything that you've ingested. So, and then they make you drink the whole cup. It's not just, even though when you vomit, they can see just how many. They ask you if you know how many pills you've taken, and as you vomit, they go through it to try to count to see how many come up. And so they, even though they can see how many came out when you vomited, they still make you take the whole cup. So they make me do that, and once I vomit, and I get settled in, because you're gonna be in for a long time. It's a hurry up and wait kind of a game. Excuse me. So after I vomit, pretty much everybody leaves the room. They come in and out every once in a while to check vitals. If you have to urinate, they give you, as a man, they give you the urinal thing that you put under the blanket and piss into, basically. And you hang it on the side of your bed. And for the most part, you just sit there. So one of the nurses left out, and she must have closed the curtain a little too far for the the comfort of the security guard that was standing outside the door. So he sticks his head in and he yells at me, "You have to leave this open." I said, "What?" He said, "You have to leave this curtain open." But it wasn't what he said, it was how he said it to me that like royally pissed me off. And so I asked him, I said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Excuse my language, but you know, in the state that I was in at the time, that's how I felt. So he tells me, again, "You have to leave this curtain open," or whatever. I was like, "When did you see me get out of the bed? You saw that nurse just left out of here and she's the one that closed the curtain. So why don't you talk to her about that and shut the F up talking to me?" So he actually did. He shut up talking to me. And I don't know if he ever said anything to that nurse or not, but he didn't have nothing else to say to me. And that's all I was asking for. So yeah, after that, I continued to wait some more. And then eventually we got to the hospital probably about 9 or 10 o'clock that night. And I was off the next 2 days, so I wasn't too much worried about that. But I'll get into more details on what really stressed me out later on and made things actually a bit worse. But about 5 o'clock that morning, the ambulance transport finally gets there, straps me to the gurney, and wheels me off to the mental health ward. So I get to the mental health ward, and you know, they go through their whole check-in process. You have to completely strip down in front of them. Even though they can see that you don't have anything on you, they still make you, as a male, they make you lift your scrotum. And if you are uncircumcised, which at that time I was, they make you pull back your foreskin, and then they make you bend over, spread your cheeks, and cough. Pretty much the same as the intake when you go into jail. So it's very humiliating. But I went through it, and not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And they checked me into a room. It was probably about 6 a.m. when I finally got to my room. And I laid down and began to go to sleep. No sooner than I doze off, they come banging on the bedroom door, because now it's breakfast time and everybody has to get up and report to the dining hall. So I go in the dining hall, and at this point, I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to go home. So I take a seat in the room up against a wall where I can see the entire room. So I don't know what's about to go down. And I was very grateful that I picked the seat that I did, because what happened next was completely mind-blowing. So the room eventually begins to fill up before they bring out the trays or whatever. And, you know, almost every man in there was sitting at their own table. And then out of the blue, you know, one guy was just sitting there, and another, this guy, he was a white guy. And everybody in the room looked normal to me. It was no obvious mental health issues going on, at least up until that point. So everybody's just sitting there, and then this other black guy, he walks in the room, and the one white guy sitting in the middle of the room, he suddenly jumps up and starts pointing at the guy that's walking in, and at the same time yells, "You better behave." And I'm like, "What? You better behave?" And the guy he's pointing at is looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Dude, you want something." And that's all. And he just keeps saying that and keeps saying that. Eventually, he said it probably about 5 or 6 times. And the guy goes sit down at a different table. And the guy that was yelling and screaming, he kept his eye trained on him the entire time. Like I said, the whole thing was very weird. But at that point, I was like, yeah, I definitely don't belong here. I'm like, if this is what mental health is all about, I don't belong in this particular setting. Not saying that I didn't have some mental health issues that needs to be addressed, but I knew I didn't belong there. So when I checked in that morning, they told me the doctor would be in around 9 o'clock, and from there, I would be released. Come to find out, what they said was wrong, and it was a mistake. And the way I found out about it was very frustrating. So after breakfast, I didn't even eat. I put my tray up, and I go back to my room, and I'm sitting in my room, and I'm watching the time. Can't go back to sleep at this point, so I'm watching the time, and I notice that it's 9 o'clock. So I'll go out up front, that other TV room. I'm in the TV room watching TV, and then suddenly everybody is asked to clear out of the TV room, or if you stay, you're going to be part of this group therapy session. Nope, not my cup of tea. So I got up and I left. And I'm just kind of pacing back and forth between the nursing station and my room, and kind of I'm seeing people's names being called to go meet with their psychiatrist or psychologist, and my name is not being called. So 9 o'clock go past, 10 o'clock go past, and there's still nothing. So I go up to the nursing station. It's like, can I help you? So I tell them my name, and I'm like, I was told I would meet with my doctor around 9 o'clock. Again, this platform only allows me 16 minutes to record, and I'm coming up on the end of my time here. So I'm going to go ahead and end this episode and go on to part 3. I thank you for listening and tuning in. And if you have any questions or concerns about anything that I've said so far in this episode or the previous episode concerning my personal battle with suicide, please feel free to reach out to me. Follow me on all my social media platforms. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok is creativelyme_, and Snapchat is LaFreddyB. Until the next time, thank you for listening, and God bless.